Live. Going five, four, three, two.
And now, the lowdown with economist and political strategist Elson Lowe.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Lowdown. I'm your host, Elson Lowe. This is going to be a special edition of the Lowdown where we're going to talk about Sugate. Folks, you know it. It's the Vice interview with the allegations regarding a certain Mr. Su based here in Guyana and regarding the Vice President here in Guyana, Mr. Barajagdio, those allegations. Of course, we don't know if these allegations are true, but the PNCR and the AFC have called for an investigation to identify whether or not these allegations are true. Folks, share the live, share the link, share this link. Let's get everyone in here tonight. We've got a show with a couple of guests for you tonight. So we've got different perspectives on this issue. We've got a couple of guests for you. Share the link. Let's give everyone the opportunity to hear what our guests have to say. We've got Sherwin Holder, who's the chairman of the PNCR. We've got Honorable Chris Jones, who's the chief whip. So we've got a couple of different guests for you guys tonight. So share the link. Share the link. Let's give everyone the opportunity to hear about Sugate and the Vice News documentary. Of course, as we indicated, we were looking for an investigation to find out what is true, what is not true, and whether there's more to this story. There are many different things that were mentioned in the course of that Vice interview, which raised a lot of questions. We'll go through some of those questions with you tonight, viewers. Viewers, share the link, share the link. Let's try and give everyone an opportunity to see. Share the link. It's always a fun time here on the Lowdown, where we've got some entertaining questions regarding Sugate. We've got a couple of guests who are ready and raring to go to talk about Sugate. It's going to be very, very interesting. This is a special edition of the Lowdown. Special edition of the Lowdown. Tuesday nights are our issues in the news night. So this is a special edition. We usually have Saturday nights as well, which is when we go over a bit more detail on various issues. In the future, I'll cover Amalia Falls again. I've covered it in the past, but I'll cover it within the context of the Vice allegations. Of course, bearing in mind that they're still to be substantiated, which is why we're calling for an investigation. Folks, the PNCR, the AFC, we're calling for an investigation into these allegations. So those of you who may be supporters of the Vice President, supporters of the PVP, I'm sure that you would be in favor of an investigation as well, so that you can clear his name, clear the Vice President's name, and help everyone to understand, help everyone to know what you know. So let's give him an opportunity. Let's have an investigation, and at the end of it, if he comes out smelling like roses, that would be, I'm sure that you'll be happy about that. So everyone should be in favor of an investigation, shouldn't they? Any reasonable Guyanese would want to clear the air, get rid of all of this confusion, doubt, get rid of all of these allegations of widespread mass corruption touching almost every major Guyanese infrastructure project. We wouldn't want that in our country. So every reasonable Guyanese would want an investigation to bring out the truth. Folks, share the link. Let's try and get everyone in tonight. Let's give everyone an opportunity to be here with us tonight. As I've mentioned, we've got two guests, Chairman Sherwin Holder, as well as Chief Whip Christopher Jones. So they're going to be on with us tonight, chatting about this issue, lending their perspectives as we go through some of the interesting issues that are brought up by Sugate. For those of you who, if you somehow managed to miss Sugate, your internet perhaps was not on, we're heard reports that the government has been trying to stop people from accessing the Sugate video, from being able to see the actual video with the allegations, which is of course very concerning in terms of freedom of information. But if you haven't, if you're not aware of these allegations, which again, we're calling for an investigation because we don't know whether they're true or not. What we've essentially seen is a local Chinese business person who has indicated that he facilitates deals with the vice president, Mr. Parajagdeo, former president. He facilitates deals with him, and in order to facilitate these deals, whether it be getting a concession, being able to get land for a hotel, being able to build a hydroelectric plant, being able to build a road, being able to access an oil concession. That all of these things can be had for a certain price. You just have to be willing to pay the price, and that he actually facilitates those very transactions here in Guyana on behalf of the vice president. In fact, he's said in the vice interview, or at least is alleged to have said in the vice interview, that the funds go to the vice president through him, and the vice president gives him some of the funds. Folks, share the link, share the link. We again are calling for an investigation into these allegations, which are very serious allegations involving the highest level of government, touching on many of Guyana's big infrastructure projects, touching on oil concessions. These are highly disturbing things. We've even heard in that vice interview that the vice president prefers cash. That's his preferred means of bribe. Again, we would like to see an investigation to identify whether or not, first of all, the vice president accept bribes, but second of all, whether cash is his preferred method of payment. All of these things we hope will come out in the course of an investigation, viewers. So share that link. Let's give everyone a chance to get in here tonight. We're going to be talking with the chairman of the PNCR in just a minute, Sherwin Holder, where he's going to give us a sense of what his takeaways are from the Sugate, what his takeaways are from the Vice News story, and we'll get some more perspective from him. He'll lend, I think, useful insights. So share the link, share the link. Let's give everyone a chance to hear about Sugate and make up their minds. Make up their minds for yourself. Of course, there's also an element of that interview where the vice president was directly confronted about whether or not he takes bribes, where the vice president was confronted about his relationship with Sue, who is his next door neighbor, who lives in a home that the vice president actually rents to him. So this is someone that the vice president known to the vice president. So there's that side of it. Of course, just because someone lives next to you doesn't mean that they facilitate bribes for you and bring cash to your house on a regular basis for national projects. It doesn't mean that that person goes around and recruits businesses to provide you with a regular income stream of bribes. It does not mean that you've become enormously wealthy off of bribes. Just because someone lives next to you, it doesn't mean that they've been able to funnel cash to you to make you enormously wealthy off of bribes. That's not correct. The only way to know whether or not it is correct, however, is to have an investigation so that the truth can come out. That's why we're calling for the truth to come out. We want the truth to come out so that it can be clear that the vice president does not regularly take bribes, and that has not been a way that he's been able to amass huge wealth. We want to ensure that Guyanese are comfortable that the vice president has not been amassing huge wealth through taking of extensive bribes for various national development projects. Rather, let us get the truth of the story. Let's see what is what, rather than there being, these extensive allegations out there and clouding the national climate, clouding the future here in Guyana. We don't want that at all. So I don't know if our first guest is ready. If he's ready, he will come on. If not, just give you some more sense of how Sugate went. Is our first guest ready there? Doesn't seem that he's quite ready. Actually, I think he is. So we'll welcome on Chairman of the PNCR, Mr. Sherwin Holder. Hi, how are you tonight, Sherwin?
Good night. Thanks for having me. I'm okay. Ready to go.
Good to have you on. Good to have you on. We've got an interesting show. We've got interesting things to discuss. As I said in my introduction, we're calling for an investigation into these allegations because we want to know for sure whether or not the vice president takes extensive bribes and as a result has been able to amass a fortune even while Guyanese have been suffering with poverty. We want to know the truth. We don't know whether or not these extensive bribes is something that's true or is just a falsification. So we're calling for an investigation. Does that sound like what we've been saying thus far?
It makes a lot of sense, Elson. You know, the PNCR, the leadership of the PNCR has long called for an investigation into the vice president's wealth. It is no, it is no secret that our leader has made several calls and had asked for Jagdeo to put his wealth against his earnings. Open up the books to independent auditors and let's put that wealth against those earnings to see if they were honestly earned or if something else has occurred there. So we've been making that call for a very long time.
Yeah.
Vice President Jagdeo is no stranger to this sort of controversy, this sort of suspicion, this sort of rhetoric. So I am not surprised. I am not surprised. I believe that the country is in shock generally, the extent of these revelations. But on a personal level, I am not surprised. I do not believe that my party, the PNCR, is either. Now,
Yeah,
an
well,
investigation is more than reasonable.
I see where
Just
you're coming from. Yeah,
clear
I
your
see,
name.
I see where you're coming from, and that's why it's so important to get an investigation so that we know the facts. Again, we want to make sure that the Guyanese people are comfortable that the vice president has not been amassing huge fortunes by accepting regular bribes for Guyana's major infrastructure projects. So, from that perspective, I just wanted to ask you what jumped out at you or what particularly interested you from the Vice News story?
There are so many things in that short interview
Quite a
that
few.
jumped out at me. I'm just figuring where should I start? I think I should start with the reporter. Commend her for her bravery. That kind of jumped out at me because we're not in recent times we've not been seeing that level of investigative reporting. It's a great risk to come into someone's country and to get into the home of somebody as powerful and influential as the vice president.
Sure.
And so that really jumped out at me that, the reporter went to that extent to get the alleged facts. I'm saying alleged facts. We don't know. You're hearing all sorts of story from Jagdeo and Irfan and the government side that, some videos were put together. But I've seen it for myself. The people of Guyana have seen it for themselves, and they will have to make their own conclusions, their own judgment. So that jumped out at me, and I want to, encourage reporters, our local reporters here, to don't allow any politician, even myself as a senior politician, don't allow us to get off the hook so easily. I often watch Jack Dio monologue for 15, 20 minutes on a single issue, and he doesn't answer it, and he's allowed to get off the hook. And so that jumped out at me. The next thing that jumped out at me was Jack Dio's reaction when he was confronted about the corruption and confronted with the name Sue. Now, Sue is supposed to be his neighbor. Sue's supposed to be someone renting or living, whatever the arrangement is, at his property. And he paused, he repeated the question. His facial expression, to my mind, said a lot to me. His voice, even his voice. Now, you have a conscience that speaks to you when these things come up, and I will draw my own conclusions as the rest of Guyana. So that jumped out at me, that whole expression. When if someone is telling the truth and when they are lying. And I wouldn't say that the vice president was lying, but I saw an expression that said something to me, and I'm certain that it said something to all of Guyana. The third thing that jumped out at me was that the revelation that he allegedly prefers cash. And I was saying to myself that, these guys want to ensure that there is no trail, there is no trace of these financial, corruption. They don't want any trail to be left. And so if this report is true, then it's very damning. It requires, it justifies the calls made by the People's National Congress Reform, by the AFC, by the WPA, by the other parties, by the independent groups for Irfan Ali to remove Jagdeo, whether it be firing him or whether you just remove him, suspend him, whatever, so that there can be an impartial investigation. That is the minimum that should occur at this time.
Yeah, I completely I see where you're coming from there. One thing, as we said, we don't know, so we want an investigation. We don't know if the vice president also prefers gold bars, cashes the allegation. So I'm sure an investigation would provide would potentially provide such details. We can't know unless there is an investigation. But one of the things I wanted to pick up on is you mentioned that the vice president should step aside in order to really that this is to facilitate an impartial investigation. Do you want to give viewers a sense of why it's so important that he's out of the picture while an investigation is taking place? Because maybe people don't have a good sense of why it's so important to have a major figure like that not involved.
Well, it is important to the vice president himself. He is supposed to be an honorable person. He is supposed to be, he is one of the chief leaders at the top of the hierarchy of government. And I don't think that it says anything positive as a nation will come out from this. Anything positive for our country will come out from this, if there isn't an impartial investigation. Guyana is at a critical point where we're looking to attract investors. We're looking to boost tourism. We're looking to move up as a country from being a piss poor country, excuse my language here, but a piss poor country. Everybody knows that was our, we have been called that for decades.
Second poorest country in the hemisphere.
In the hemisphere, exactly, precisely. And so we have an opportunity to rise above the water, to have our chins above that water. Prosperity is in our reach. And so we cannot afford to have such a scandal, such a stain on our nation that will set us back, that can potentially set our country back, set our people back for the next decade or so. So we have to grab this moment. So it is very, very important that an impartial investigation is done. And if the vice president is innocent, as he claims, then I don't see why he will not facilitate such an investigation. The only way that such an investigation can be done, the first step, it is not the only step, Elson. We cannot run away with the idea that Jagdeo stepping down will automatically afford us an impartial investigation. But I'm saying to you that it is the first step towards an impartial investigation. He has to be removed. He has to be removed to allow officers, to allow persons to function and to feel comfortable to do the job that they have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is very, very critical at this point. And I want to make another point. Now, this nation, we're a small nation, and generally, agencies, whether it's private or public, take their cue from the leaders, from the government. And if you have allegations of mass corruption at that level, it will trickle down to the other agencies, it will trickle down to the police force. It sends a wrong message to the people of this country. It will trickle into the private sector. And we've been here before. We've been here before, Elson. And so, that reinforces my point again, that there needs to be an impartial investigation. And for that to happen, the first step is that Irfan Ali must ask Jack Dio to step aside so that this investigation can be done in an impartial manner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd actually add to that of course we don't know if the vice president is guilty of taking bribes and becoming extremely wealthy from taking bribes. But if he is guilty and he remains in an influential position in the government, it is reasonable to think that he would do everything in his power to stop the investigation from being impartially carried out and to stop it from reaching its true course. So that is the reason, one of the key reasons, that he would need to step aside or be removed so we can have a properly impartial investigation.
And Elson,
yes.
if I can add, for the sake of public confidence, this guy is someone who is in charge of, we all know that he is in charge of our oil industry. And this is what Chinese are putting their hopes and dreams into. And so for the sake of public confidence, we cannot have someone at the helm of our future, and the future of our country, who is perceived to be corrupt, who is perceived to be taking deals, making deals, backdoor deals, and under the table deals. It says a lot for the future of this country. And so again, he needs to step down. He needs to step aside and allow this process.
Yeah. And it is in the interests of the country more broadly. It is in the interests of everyone if we have a proper impartial investigation, and if the vice president can, it is demonstrated that he has not been taking bribes and becoming extremely wealthy from taking bribes, then that will be to his benefit, and we'll be able to move forward as a country. But it is important that we have a proper impartial investigation to that end. Now, I just want to drill down a little bit on some of the things that we've heard to get a sense of your perspective. Now, of course, again, we don't know the truth, but if these allegations are true, what do you think that Jack Dio meant in the video when he said that Sue takes care of the agreements? I thought that was an interesting statement that he said when they were in his home.
I have seen ministers of the current administration take parts of that interview out of context. But I will tell you this, it meant exactly that. To me, it meant exactly that. Sue takes care of these agreements. He is the chief negotiator. He is the facilitator. He ties up the deals. And if you follow it from the video, when you follow the video, that is exactly what he said. He said clearly, quite clearly, that he has brokered bigger deals than these before. So basically, it's nothing. It's nothing. He can take care of this. And so this was literally, I think, if the video, of course, is accurate, if it's legitimate, because there are claims by the honorable vice president and others that parts of these videos were put together and doctored in whatever way. But I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard, and I thought that it was literally Sue takes care of these agreements. I saw at one point he was showing them some documents, and they had it on video, deals being brokered, payments being made. So I am convinced that is in my right to be convinced with what I saw. But of course, I'm not saying that the
This is a
the
hypothetical. This is a hypothetical. If
yes,
these allegations are true, what does this mean? And
if
I'll give
there
you another one.
if the
If
video
they're
if the video is legitimate, if everything there is legitimate, then that
yeah,
is my
yeah,
conclusion.
yeah. Another interesting thing that followed from that same conversation. Again, this is a hypothetical. If these allegations happen to be true, what did Jagno mean when he said, "You will get the support," or I help from the government side"? Very
Um,
interesting things to say. What is
I,
he trying to convey to this Chinese this investor that came in?
now, if these videos are legitimate, and if
If
they're
the
true,
allegations are true.
the allegations are true, I think that he was giving thumbs up. He was giving a nod to say to them, "Hey, I've got this covered. I am guaranteeing that you're going to get the support. I am in control. I am in charge. I am the person, of course, through Sue as the facilitator. But once Sue brings you to me, and I give you that head, that nod, then you're quite set. You're quite set in achieving that objective which you set out to achieve. I have the power. It says to me that he was actually saying that I have the power within government to facilitate you, to give you that push so that you can be ahead of your competitors. You can, have a strategic advantage. And so it says a lot. But in a nutshell, it to me it said that once you get the green light from me as vice president, all is well. You can be sure that this we're concretizing this deal right here and right now. You will get the push in that on the government level, and it will go through. So you don't have anything to worry about. We can begin to negotiate the other terms of this arrangement. The
Chairman,
finance.
if you could just remind me, does Guyana have procurement laws?
That is the problem. I thought about this when looking at this whole interview playing out, and I questioned myself on that same very thing. We have, together as opposition and government, agreed on setting up the procurement commission. Those names were already gazetted over a month ago, and these guys are here cutting deals under the table, behind the back door, and they're refusing to set up the procurement commission. Now, don't get me wrong, these guys are very skillful. By setting up this procurement commission, it doesn't mean that it will cut out corruption. They they have found ways and means to bypass it in the past, and they will do it. They will do it again. But at least Guyanese can feel a little more comfortable that there is a place where contractors can go and lodge their complaints. In the commission has the power to investigate those complaints. So at least there is some avenue that is there for complaints to be made and some bit of investigation to be had. But even at that level, they have refused to bring the commission um to allow it to
Yeah,
function.
refuse to swear in the commissioners and
Yes,
to
yes,
bring the,
yes. They
to
have refused to
activate the
swear them
commission.
in and to have the commission operational.
Yeah, yeah, and we
And
take this opportunity to remind viewers that the Public Procurement Commission, which is a constitutional commission, was first operationalized under the AP and UAFC after a prolonged period when the PPP refused to put it into operation. And now again, we've got a period where the commissioners are there, but they've not been sworn in. So it again raises, I think, a lot of questions. And in
and
fact, one of the most obvious questions that I think comes out of the entire Sugate is it's not clear what law empowers the vice president to provide support. It's not clear what law he's relying on in providing providing any kind of support. And it'd be great if you could clarify what law empowers him to provide any level of support. I understand there's an agency called Go Invest, I understand that that's the agency tasked with investments in
Exactly.
Koreana. So, it's not particularly clear. I wasn't aware that he was in charge of hotels and casinos as part of his portfolio. I could be mistaken. I thought it was oil and gas and finance and so on. But so these are interesting questions that we love to hear the vice president's
Those
answer.
are the questions. Those are the questions. He had a press conference this afternoon. I didn't look at it, but those are some of the questions that I expect or we expect them to press him with.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up with it's another thing that's has been said. You're hearing people, various folks say that, oh, in the video it says that the vice president keeps his hands clean, therefore he's not involved in any bribery allegations, anything like that. What did you, if these allegations are true, what do you think Sue meant by saying that the vice president keeps his hands clean? What do you
so
think
I
Sue
I
meant by?
am amazed. I am amazed that ministers of government and odd supporters of the PVP will try to twist what was actually meant in that interview. You know, if you go back and listen, I will encourage the entire public to listen to it. What it meant, if the video is true, of course, if the allegations are true, we're not saying hypothetically, but if they are true, to my mind, what it meant is that the vice president does not get his hands directly dirty. He doesn't directly collect monies, gifts, whatever, from these contractors for these deals. There is a middle person who deals with that. So he keeps his hands clean. He doesn't get involved in that. The cash merely comes to him after that middleman, who in this case is allegedly Sue. When Sue handles it, as he says, Sue will handle it from the horse's mouth. From the horse's mouth. So once Sue handles it, Sue gets his hands dirty, and then he passes that cash onto the vice president allegedly. And that is what he said. He chronicled how it's done. He went step by step, and he said that the vice president gives him a part of that
Yeah, yeah.
that I'm sure I heard that in the video. But
That's
again, we are
exactly what
saying,
he said. That's exactly what
yes,
he said.
yes. So to my mind, it is that Jack Dio does not directly uh, gets his hands dirty, gets his hands on the cash. He doesn't deal directly with investors. There is a middle person, and that is how it is done. So his hands are kept clean. He's very, very careful not to have any trail for money, etc. So he doesn't go through a bank. He doesn't offer a bank account, some kind of Republic Bank account or whatever, where you will lodge this money. The middleman, the guy with the dirty hands, comes and gives him this money, and then he determines what the commission should be. It sounds as though he gets the bulk of it, and then the middle person is paid on a commission. That is my interpretation of what transpired here. But again, we are not saying that it is true. It is an allegation, and we can only judge from what is actually in front of us. We don't know if the video is legitimate or not, but we are trying to interpret what we are seeing there, what we saw there on the clip.
Exactly, exactly. So that's why we're calling for an investigation so that we can know the truth, so that we can know whether whether or not the vice president prefers to receive bribes in cash as opposed to gold, whether he
We
has
want to
been
know if he
taking
has clean
bribes.
hands. We want to know if he has clean hands.
We want to know if he has clean hands. We want to know if he accepts bribes. We want to know if he says that, sometimes he says his bribe is too low, you have to come back with
I
a higher bribe.
I want to
We don't
I
know
want
any
to
of
make
this.
a point. I want to make one point here.
Yeah.
During the 5 years of APNU AFC government, you could not have pointed your fingers at David Granger. Currently, the new leader of the coalition, they cannot point their fingers in terms of corruption or bribery at Aubrey Norton. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a great point, and it's important that we reiterate the value of integrity in our society, the real dangers that come from corruption, and why we want a corruption-free society as much as we can have a corruption-free society. We'll talk just as we round things out about some of the negative effects, if these allegations are true, that you might be seeing across the society. And as I mentioned earlier, I think an entire show needs to be dedicated to the serious negative effects from the many different projects that were mentioned over the course of the. That's one of the most concerning things about the video, is that it is not one project, it is three or four different things that were mentioned. So if those allegations are true, that is a very problematic thing for our country. We're going to bring on in just a second Chief Whip Chris Jones. He's going to want to share his take on these on Sugate as well. It's certainly something that's captured the nation's attention. It's certainly something that's worthy of investigation. So if Chris is ready, there we'll bring him on and we'll just say hi and let's have a quick chat with MP Chris Jones. Hi, it's good to have you on, Chris. How are you tonight? If you could unmute your mic.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah,
Pleasant good
no.
evening to you guys.
Yeah. Good to have you on. Good to have you on. It's an exciting night. There's a lot going on. The country is abuzz with Sugate. The country is abuzz with Sugate. We just wanted to know what your take was on it. What about that Vice interview really jumped out at you, or you thought was particularly interesting? Was there anything you thought deserved its own television series, as an example, something that had a whole lot raised a whole lot of questions, perhaps, for you?
No, but indeed, just quickly, Elson, I would want to differ in a bit. Indeed, that this even is some very exciting times, but unfortunately for Guyana, once again, it is some excitement for some from serious matters that should not be. We would have rather been very excited to hear perhaps the long-awaited increase in wages and salaries for public servants after the People's Progressive Party Civic would have promised them for a number of years, is even in their manifesto. And to date, we have not seen that manifested. We would have loved to see the establishment of various commission that has been languishing there for quite a while, even the appointment of the Commission of Police, etc., etc. Unfortunately, we are here again. And this time, as you mentioned, it's Sugate. We had so many gates in the past. You had the Nigel Darmalal gate, you had the Frank Anthony with the COVID vaccine gate, you had the Kwame McCoy physically assaulting Member Parliament Tabitha Sarabo Hali gate, and the list goes on. What Vice News has essentially done in their interview and their undercover investigation is reveal what a lot of Guyanese already know. The reality in Guyana, to do business in Guyana, you have to know somebody in authority, and then you have to be prepared to pay a substantial amount of money to get what you want, whether it is the acquisition of land, whether it is to get a contract, and so forth. Everyone in Guyana, even the smallest child in a nursery or primary school, knows that in order to get business done in Guyana, you have to know somebody in the People's Progressive Party civic government, and you have to be prepared to bribe someone. It is just that Vice News decided, after receiving multiple reports about corruption reaching high levels of government in Guyana, decided to conduct an investigation. So their investigation is just to reveal what they were informed and what every single Guyanese know. We have always known that senior government members of the People's Progressive Party Civic are involved in corrupt practices. For years, it is nothing new. I tell people that you constantly have to remind yourself of what transpired in Guyana under Barrett Jagnio's administration when he was president. And you go to the U.S. State Department report. I tell people this is available online. You just Google U.S. State Department on Guyana, and you reference the year in which Barajaglio was president, and you would see a slew of allegations from business people within Guyana who were threatened that if they do not pay a bribe or do as said, you had the Guyana Revenue Authority moving into their business, stated to them that they have millions of dollars in outstanding rates and taxes. I told people I was privy at that time as the public relations officer attached to the then leader of the opposition, Robert Corbyn, in which you had businessmen and women who operated within Regent Street or various parts of this country, that they had to literally sneak into Congress Place in the wee hours of the morning to conduct a meeting with the opposition leader in which they would reveal some of what I just said to you, that there is somewhat of a shakedown from this PPP minister or so forth. All of this transpired under Barajaglio's administration. So again, the Vice News investigation essentially revealed what is currently happening in Guyana, what has been happening in Guyana under the People's Progressive Party Civic, and since the return to office by the PPP, the same levels of corruption has started again. I remind you and your viewers, Elson, as well, within a few weeks after the PPP was installed in office in 2020, you had the massive drug interception in a foreign territory. And in that particular, that's right. And in that particular jurisdiction, it was the largest drug bust ever in the history of that country. So it reminds us, or it says to us,
just like good old times, you know.
Just like good old times. Just like good old times. But what it reminds us is that drug baron, people involved in the illicit trade, people involved in corrupt practices feel a sense of comfort when the People's Progressive Party Civic is in office. And that is why if you check the transparency, the corruption index, you will see that Ghana has already started to slip to a place that it was before 2015. We're going right back there. I saw today on social media individuals and persons and even companies putting out these little memes. I stand in support of Jaglio. We unwavering support and all of this. Listen, this, as far as it stands as we speak here now, it is an allegation. It is a most damning allegation on a most senior official of your country's government. What is expected in any decent society, law-abiding society, is that it is expected that the powers that be will call for an independent investigation. Absolutely. So that the individual, as the individual who these allegations are being made against, he or she can have their slate wiped clean. And if after this impartial investigation is had and there is no substantive evidence to tie him or her to any corrupt practices, then that person will then continue or continue the support and confidence of the people of the country.
Yeah.
Now, this is 2022. This is not 1992, 1972, 1982. This Vice News report documentary has not only been shown here in Guyana, it is not only here on people's WhatsApp. In every single country across the world, they have access to Vice News documentary. Because save and accept, just like how Guyana is now an oil-producing country, the name Guyana, for many people across the world who've never heard about Guyana, they always associate Guyana with Ghana and believe that somewhere in South Africa. And then they're being told, no, Guyana is in South America, the only English-speaking country in South America. And now that country is an oil-producing country. So many people across the world want to invest in such a country named Guyana. So when they Google Guyana, apart from Guyana being an oil-producing country, Vice News documentary will also show up in that Google search.
Apparently, Guyana is for sale. Apparently, Guyana is for sale. That's what the Vice News documentary is indicating.
So you imagine when those companies and individuals click on Google Guyana and you have Guyana, the oil producing country, and Guyana for sale, Vice News, and they click on that. And who they are looking at based on what the documentary says, based on what the narrator said, they went undercover to Vice President Bharat Jagdeo. This is the Vice President of the country. And in that documentary, they are in his home.
Yeah,
and you hear
absolutely.
the gentleman speak about bribe, and then Sue say this is not the place to discuss it. And then in another location, he says that you will pass it to me, and I got to pass it to my boss.
Yeah,
The
and they
world
ask who's the boss, and they say the boss
exactly
is Jack Dio.
it's Bharat Jagdeo. So for those party supporters and people, companies and businesses and individuals who have benefited from Bharat Jagdeo. And that is why, you say, who pays the piper? You call the tune. So essentially, they've been paid by him. So now he called the tune and they have to sing, put up posters. I stand in solidarity. I stand in support of Bharat Jagdeo, as if that in itself will wash away the Voice News documentary that is now global, that now puts Guyana smack right back there where we were before 2015 as a corrupt country of which there are allegations of which corruption reaches the highest level of government. This man, apart from being current the vice president, served as a sitting head of state in this country. And you ask the smallest child in this country, they will tell you that Bharat Jagdeo is indeed in de facto the president, and Irfan Ali is just the front man. Everybody knows that. That is a Victoria's Secret that everybody knows. That is a reality. So those party supporters and people who are posting on social media and this and that, but they stand in support, that doesn't change the fact of the matter that this documentary is global. And the documentary says in the documentary that the vice president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is involved in corrupt practices. And that in that documentary, it says that the vice president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana takes bribe. And the vice president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana conducts business of which it is not his portfolio inside of his home. You understand what I'm saying? So when they posting and presenting themselves on social media, oh, we stand in support of vice president and so forth, everybody watching you. Everybody watching you. Because if you indeed stand in support of him, then you would want to ensure that he has a clean bill of health, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And you will echo the sentiments of like-minded, law-abiding citizens, organizations, and political parties, such as the PNC, the AFC, the WPA, the National, the Guyana Nation Builders, etc., who have thus far echoed the same sentiments, that if you want him to have a clean bill of health, so to speak, then
should all
launch,
be in favor.
exactly, launch an independent investigation, ask him to demit office for a few weeks or a few months, have this investigation done, have a report submitted, and then they can turn to the PNC, the AFC, and all the parties that come and say, hey, where you got to say no? And all we can do is shut them out. You understand me? But so long as those allegations stays in the air, it stains the reputation
of the
it
country.
stains the reputation of the country.
Yep.
Irfan Ali is doing himself and his administration an injustice because it will stain his administration as well. Could you imagine that the president, Irfan Ali, without conducting an investigation, he has done rule out that Bharat Jagdeo is innocent, and this was yesterday. How could you even be taken seriously? And you think that you could jump on a plane and everything will wash away? The fact of the matter, that Vice News documentary is global. And as far as it is stated, you got to go and look at some of the countries in the Caribbean newspapers headline, damning, screaming headline with a huge picture of Guyana's former president, Vice President Jagdeo, in caught undercover investigation. etc., etc. That is what
Yeah,
is happening.
yeah, absolutely. And one question that we could ask the current president, given that he's ruling out, asking Vice President to step aside for the investigation is, how does he know that the Vice President has not been taking bribes and enriching himself without a proper
Correct.
investigation? How does
Correct.
he know that? So an
Correct.
investigation benefits everyone, and therefore everyone should be in favor of a
That's
proper
right.
a proper investigation. You
That's
mentioned
right.
something that I want to bring Sherwin in on this that I thought was interesting. So if these allegations are true, again we're talking about allegations. Why do you think the vice president met Mr. Su and I believe it's Mr. Chan, the person who's posing as a Chinese investor? Why do you think he met them at his home and not at a government building? Supposing that these allegations are true, why was this meeting taking place in his home? I mean, he's a public official. He has an office. His office is closed for renovations, or they're fumigating the place. I don't know if you had any insights as to why if these allegations are true, why they were meeting at his home.
Well, first off, Elson, as Chris mentioned, this sort of arrangement is beyond outside of his portfolio. So for beginners, it cannot happen in his office. It's outside of his portfolio, so it's totally unrelated to his office. My second observation would be that I think it's a place of comfort. It's a place where certain types of deals can be had, and so you'll have it. Why not have it in his home? The whole atmosphere seemed very uh, it seemed very comfortable between the parties. The vice president was in his chair, all relaxed. This wasn't something that Sue walked up. This wasn't a situation where Sue walked up to his door and knocked, and he said, "No, no, no, we can't do this here." They were welcomed in the home, and they sat and they spoke. And
Yeah,
he said what he had to say. He said clearly that Sue handles these arrangements and he can give the support. He gives the support. That is what was said. And so I think this was a place where many other deals, of course, if the videos and the interview is accurate, if it's genuine, it seemed to me from that video that deals like these were done before. They're very comfortable. This is the place where deals are being made as far as I'm concerned. And so I think that, given that Sue is his neighbor, I think in the past he said Sue lives next to him and he rents a property from him. So it was very convenient. You don't want to have these investors in the public domain where you have cameras and people seeing you. These investors come in today and then tomorrow you see in the newspapers that they have been awarded contracts or they were given prime property. And so the best place to do it is at Pradoville. That is the best place where all these
yeah,
fellas live and they associate. So that is the deal making place, Elson. I'll ask Chris to have a go at it.
Yeah. No, but actually today at the press, well, if you call it a press conference or a press home stretch or whatever the case be, the question was asked about whether or not Irfan Ali has discussed this at the level of cabinet, and Mara Jaglio says that I'm not sure. I think it was discussed, or Irfan Ali says that he will discuss it at the cabinet and so forth and so on. And this is about the second time in which Jaglio made such pronouncements. Because before, at a previous briefing or hearing that he had, he mentioned the fact that he don't normally go to cabinet meeting. That alone says to you that Bharat Jaglio is above cabinet and above Irfan Ali, and he runs his parallel government. He himself and him. So when we ask the probing question as to how is it that he is conducting interviews or sit downs with people as it relates to investment in the country, and as vice president, it is not his portfolio. It is because he himself is a government. He considers himself above the president and the cabinet. So therefore, any area, any portfolio at any time, he can speak on or sign off an agreement or whatever, and then cabinet just has to approve it because he said so. And that further confirms what we believe and always knew, that essentially that he is the head of state and Irfan Ali is just a front man. And that is why essentially, as I mentioned before, about these persons who are jumping on social media, young people, I see some DJs and are getting themselves involved, DJs, and asked what is it that what benefit were you derive from? And it's likely something that the state owes every single Guyanese that you are entitled to. It's perhaps a house lot that they went to somebody, and that is a case in point. Is that you have to know somebody in order to get a simple thing as a house lot in which you are entitled to. So you have many of these youngsters who are flouncing on social media, proudly throwing up that I stand in support with Jagdi or whatever, because simply what? They went and applied for a house lot and he helped them to get a house lot. And therefore, if he corrupt, I could jump on the corruption bandwagon.
Endorse it.
Endorse it.
On the point of houses, again, if we're looking at if these allegations are true, and you gentlemen can tell me what your thoughts are. But does the fact that Sue lives next door to Jagdeo and rents a house from him make you less likely or more likely to believe that what Sue is saying is true? Okay, of course we don't know, but does it make it more likely that you'd believe him or less likely that you'd believe him? The fact he lives next door and he's renting from Jagdeo.
Listen, it is an arrangement of convenience. That's what that is. Pradoville, by virtue of the fact that this is a sitting vice president and former president, Pradoville is a somewhat gated community. In front of Pradoville sits the Pleasance police station. Of course, police security detail of itself provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, police surveillance and protection. By virtue of having a house in which you have Sue, and it is alleged that Sue is a tenant, I would love to know what is the rental fee that Sue pays. And you would be surprised that Sue paid a rental fee of $100 million. And that's his rent. You understand me? And you can't question the man. You understand what I'm saying?
So, that's a very great point Chris is making.
So when you talk about an arrangement of convenience, is that no average camera or individual could walk into Pradoville. Nobody could stand at the gate of Pradoville and zoom a camera inside. So therefore, any operations or the happenings inside of Pradoville would be kept secret and private. And therefore, to have Sue and state that Sue is an alleged tenant, that he lives there, that if Jagdeo deposits into an account $100 million, $200 million, and the bank dares to ask him, like how they would ask us, what is your source? They wouldn't dare to ask Jagdeo, what is your source of income? They would just collect the 200 million, 500 million, whatever. And Jagdeo could simply say, oh, it's my rent. This
clean hands, right. Chris. Clean hands.
Clean hands. This $500 million, $500 million Guyana dollars. I borrow Jagdeo deposit. This is my rent. Sue pays rent. I'm a landlord.
That's one channel. That is certainly one channel. Yeah. Exactly. Well, another thing, another interesting point on
the name. Chris is really on the ball with that point. The first time I heard that Sue was a tenant, it struck me because I didn't imagine that, in Pradoville too, persons were allowed to rent houses in there, in that fashion. So Chris has made a very, very salient point there. I think he's on the money, on the ball, and given the revelations about clean hands and how it's done, we can see the correlation. We can see that correlation, how exactly it is done.
So following on the point, as we're talking about houses, let's keep talking about houses. So one method, we talk about deposits in banks, but in the video it is indicated, and again, this is the allegation, that Jagdeo prefers cash. And in fact, in the video, Sue is alleged that Sue said that, I will go with you and we'll give him the cash together. So, some people are indicating that maybe you're not going to find any traces because it's cash.
That's fair.
I would gently point out to my guest that's having been trained in investigating money laundering. They say you either spend the money, you bank it, or you have it on your possession. And so, if there
Mhm,
were an investigation, one of the first
mhm,
places that people would go is to the same house, checking all the walls because it is a
mhm.
possibility, if the allegations are true, that the walls of that house are lined with cash. Again, we don't know that the walls of Jack Dill's house are lined with cash from various deals over the years, and that he has amassed tremendous wealth over the course of the years from taking large scale bribes. We don't know that whether or not he's been taking large scale bribes,
Yeah,
but we can
yeah.
only ask for an investigation to identify what
Mhm.
the truth is as to whether or not he's been taking large scale bribes and becoming incredibly wealthy and lining the walls of his house with cash. We don't know. But you know,
Or,
that's
or
the purpose of an investigation to know whether or not.
or maybe let me posit this. So apart from the walls being lined with cash, how about if you have a certain businessman in another jurisdiction? I'm not going to name a country, and he happens to be building this massive building for you, and he takes his cash and he's building that for you there. And his interest here in Guyana, you simply pass those physical cash over to those individuals here so they conduct that business on your behalf. So
Mm,
therefore, there is no cash that I have to deposit anywhere. There's no money from you over there having to send to me here. So my hands are clean.
Clean
mm.
hands.
Yeah, clean hands.
Very,
Clean
very
hands.
viewers. Yeah, we're learning some interesting things tonight, viewers. Very
Yep.
interesting things.
And
Uh,
sorry to
no,
interject
keep going.
here, Elson. And because of the Vice News documentary that is global, and all of these allegations, and allegations lead to speculations, like how we've been doing here. We're speculating how the
Regulated.
money's passed, how it passed, when it passed, and so forth. And as the days progress, you will have more swirling speculation. The only way you can put a lid on that is by launching an impartial investigation. Have the vice president demit office for a few weeks or months. Have this investigation done. And let me again stress, not an investigation comprising of individuals from Guyana. Is that we want to identify persons internationally. For damn sake, bring Scotland Yard, invite Scotland Yard here and so forth, and let them conduct these investigations. And at the end, when they submit their report, if there is no credible evidence to link the vice president to any of the allegations as made out in the Vice News documentary, then the vice president is in the clear and he received a clean bill of health. And we move on. But
Mm,
so long as you have these allegations and speculation swirling, as I mentioned before, it will continue to stain the reputation of the country as it's already doing, and it will continue across. No one who conducts or comes from a place in which laws are observed and so forth would want to come to a country like this to invest. We've had numerous reports over the years of businessmen coming to the shore to conduct business, not necessarily at the government level in which they were asked to give a bribe to an individual, but you've heard allegations of somebody from the Guyana Revenue Authority asking for a bribe, the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, and the list goes on. The Guyana, the GRO, the passport office, right throughout the country. You could change Guyana's name to Bribeville and it will suit. And you would have no objection because, as I mentioned, the smallest child knows the reality of this country. But when those allegations reaches the highest level of your government, of your government, and there is no investigation, there is no inquiry, there is no COI to find out whether or not these allegations are truth, then therefore it leads us to believe that the allegations are indeed truth. And the People's Progressive Party Civic is complicit and part and parcel. Perhaps when Sue passes the bribe to Bharat, Bharat has to share it amongst the PPP executive. Perhaps,
Perhaps
perhaps it goes
we
into
don't
free.
know.
Perhaps it goes into a Freedom House account. Perhaps that's how Freedom House is able to function with its offices across the country because it's a whole bribe mafia style corrupt political party that now finds itself in government, that has access to the purse and has access to the coffers, and they spend it and collect bribe and give land out. You take the one, you get the contract, you build, but make sure you bring back the money for we. That is how they operate. Full mafia administration. And again, to your viewers, go to Google and Google US State Department report on Guyana, particularly during the period of Bharat Jagdeo's presidency, and you will see a slew of allegations, ranking from association with people in the narcotics trade, you name it, all is
Also,
there. The
corruption
Roger
index.
Khan, the Phantom Death Squad,
Corruption
everything is
index.
there.
Yeah,
Exactly. We have returned full circle. Nothing you must be saying if only Granger was in office still. I know. But you're not gonna say you wouldn't say that loud. No, you wouldn't say that loud. And you know, lastly, my apologies, lastly, when we keep calling for lots of civil society organization, businesses like the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, the Private Sector Commission, the Bar Association. I've seen these folks drop statements and release left, right, and center on and everything. But something so damning that stains the reputation of this country. We hear nothing from the Bar Association. We hear nothing from the Private Sector Commission. We hear nothing from the Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because, and I say this without fear of successful contradiction, they have many of the members associated with those bodies benefited in some way from Bharat Jagdeo, and therefore they have already been paid and the piper called the tune. You know, as we would say sometimes, Bharat probably saying to many of those organizations and individuals, y'all playing froggy, jump.
well,
Jump.
that's why we wanna see investigations. We want to see investigations. We want to see investigations. And I would add to that, there's various embassies that deal with Ghana. We want to see all those embassies come out to say that it is important that we have the level playing field. It's important we have proper accountability. You've seen the US Embassy come out with that. You've seen other groups say that, this is something that's important in Guyana. We want to see even the multilateral agencies, the IMF, the IDB, the World Bank. They've talked about accountability. They've talked about the way that Guyana is run and the ways that we can improve it. They've talked about procurement and the problems with procurement. We want to hear them come out and make a statement to say that we need to see accountability. We need to see investigation. We need to see the truth come out of these allegations, because it is not going to be a situation where we can move forward as a country until this cloud is cleared. Until this cloud is cleared. Gentlemen, I want you to keep something at the back of your mind, and the last thing I'll ask you, so in a few minutes, but I'd like you to think for yourself, if these allegations are true, what is one thing that you would like to ask Mr. Su? If these allegations are true, what is one thing that you would like to ask him? I'm curious, what you would like to ask him. So you can let that circulate in your mind for 1 second, and then I'll ask you what comes to mind. Maybe you'd like to ask him what type of tea Jagdeo serves. Maybe you'd like to ask me if Jagdeo has black cake there for visitors. I don't know, but I'm sure sure that you have something, that may pop into your mind. But in the course of the Vice News reporting, a couple of things jumped out that were very disturbing, and I've indicated we need to address these things more fully in going forward. One being that there's a strong, or at least there was a strong allegation made that the Amalia Falls Hydro project is one of the projects that is connected to these bribery schemes. That's the first. The second is that there's some sort of an oil company that is connected to these types of bribery schemes. Again, we don't know, but this is why you would investigate. However, if these allegations are true, this raises some very, very worrying questions about those two things. First of all, we have been scratching our heads trying to figure out why in the world the PPP has decided to push Amalia Falls Hydro again, given the tremendous risk that it poses to the country, the difficulty of execution, the possibility that if it is not executed well, Guyana will lose as much as $3 billion trying to figure out this project. The persistence of blackouts and electricity shortages in Guyana for years now, and the ease of doing things like solar. Recently, the vice president even came out to say, oh, solar is too expensive, it doesn't work at night. You know, it should be obvious to viewers that you could just use the solar during the day and use your regular gasoline, fuel oil powered generation during the night. And that way you would be able to cut the bill, the GPL bill in the country by basically half, right? You'd probably be able to cut it by even more than that. So these questions of these types of answers, which are not the best answers, have raised some serious questions. Now, if these allegations are true, what it would mean is that there's been a deliberate effort by the government and by Mr. Jagdeo himself to put forward national development projects like Amalia, which are incredibly risky to the country, which have delayed us getting proper electricity, cheap electricity in the country by many years, and which have huge risks to the country. If the allegations are true, that is what has been going on. It is not that Amalia was ever a good idea, but it is a deliberate tactic, and it would be that the vice president, having taken funds, cannot now not do Amalia. He's already locked himself into that. If these allegations are true, and so that would explain why the country is, every time you get blackout, again, if these allegations are true, every time you get blackout, you should think of these two words. You should think of the word Amalia, and you should think of the word Jagdeo, right?
Yeah.
If those two things are totally tied, because what is the allegation which needs to be investigated is that Amalia is a deliberate effort to secure a bribe. That is what has been going on, and it has nothing to do with electricity generation. I'll tell you something interesting, viewers, and we'll bounce back to see whether we have an answer to that question as to what these two fine gentlemen would like to ask Mr. Su. But internationally, and this is unfortunately the issue in many countries that have difficulties with oil corruption, the purpose of national projects is to engage in corruption. It is not to provide services. It is not to provide roads, none of that. The purpose is to engage in corruption. That is the actual reason that you even have any of the projects. And so, if these allegations are true, Amalia Falls is a perfect example of what happens in other countries that have an oil curse, where the oil funds are pretty much all stolen by elites. That would be exactly what is going on, textbook. And in fact, the way that this thing works is through these same middlemen. So that is why we need an investigation to find out the truth, because this is incredibly concerning, and it looks exactly like the thing we're trying to avoid. But that's Amalia. I don't know if you gentlemen, if this raised any concerns for either of you. Just hearing the hydro project, the embattled hydro project, once again mentioned. It's like this thing just won't go away, but if these allegations are true, we don't know why it won't go away.
I would have Sherwin make a first jump, and I can probably come at the tail end.
On the
Amalia, if the allegations are true, and Amalia is indeed the only reason we're pursuing it is because bribes have been paid. What does that mean for Guyana? What does that mean for these large projects that we're seeing now the PPP undertake?
Elson, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. Amalia has been with us for what? For the last decade, over a decade or so. We've went through the motions of the road, even to the contractor who was given the contract. And again, this might be one of those deals, as we're seeing in Vice Media, a contractor who never built a single road or a bridge or anything of substance, be given that road to be done. How many millions of dollars? And he could not have gotten it done. Eventually, the government had to pull it from him. He had old equipment coming in the country, and a whole host of things. We had issues with funding. We had the thing running over the budget by millions, tens of millions of dollars. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
ended up being the hugest project in the history, the
I think
biggest
the budget doubled or
that we
tripled
were
by
going,
the
yeah,
end of it.
doubled or triple.
Yeah,
And so at this point, one would have thought that the government would have learned from those mistakes, if they were mistakes, that is. But we're getting the feeling now from the Vice News interview that these weren't mistakes. This was strategic. It was something that was these were deals that were being made by the government, obviously, and there must be a reason why they're so persistent, why they're going after such a project after its failure, after so many controversies. And one would ask the question, why is it that they're still heading into that project? You've said it. We've discussed on many programs that uh,
yeah.
there are other projects
Other
that could be
alternatives.
cheaper projects.
Yeah, yeah,
The same solar that is being
yeah, yeah,
condemned now. We know, you and I know, you being a financial person, myself being an engineer, that so
yeah,
their revolutionary
yeah. The cost of
technology
solar
in
has fallen so far.
in solar at this time. As an
Yeah,
economics, you can tell the public about the cost of these hydro projects,
yeah, yeah,
as compared with the cost of solar and these new technologies, and how the cost has been greatly reduced over the last decade in terms of solar and its new technologies. So there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason why. There's cost benefit. There's also time benefit.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
geographical benefits
yeah,
if we're
yeah.
going to use solar as against hydropower. So it
Right on
goes
the
back to that
coast.
question.
Yeah,
Why
you
is
could
it
put it right
that
on the coast.
they're so persistent to go after this hydro
Yeah,
project?
yeah,
The
yeah.
only reason can be that these are corrupt deals that are being
Well, that's it. If these allegations are true, we have a very good, very clear reason why this project has persisted.
to my mind, it is very clear. It is very clear what is going on here.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, Amalia is a heavyweight champion. Amalia lasting 10 rounds
there
in a row.
are
Amalia will
there are
not die. I mean,
projects. There there are mega hydro projects across the world. We can name several. You know them, Elson.
yeah,
We can
yeah,
name them mega projects that are way cheaper.
yeah,
Solar projects that are way cheaper, will
yeah,
produce much more
yeah,
power, and it will cost us less.
yeah,
Why is
yeah.
it that we're getting into this Amelia hydro project again? It can only be corruption. My opinion, my
Mhm.
humble opinion, it can only be deals were already made. There's lots of money to be made there, and that is the only reason. Personal greed, elitist greed comes first and foremost in front of country and the well-being of the people of this land.
Ladies and gentlemen, if these allegations are true, every time you get blackout, we want you to remember these two words, Amalia and Jagdeo. Every time the power is cut, remember
Yep.
Amalia and Jagdeo. Jagdeo and Amalia, Amalia and Jagdeo, Jagdeo and Amalia.
Mhm.
Every time
Mhm.
you get a blackout from now until the next election. And a little
Mhm.
already told me that there's a lot of blackouts coming. And guess what? Amalia, because it's a project that's so problematic, is delayed and delayed. So you're not even going to get power. You're not going to get electricity from that before the next election. So every
Mm.
time you get a blackout, if these allegations are true, you just keep at the back of your mind, Amalia and Jagdeo, Jagdeo and Amalia. But Chris, I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to chime in. We've talked a bit about Amalia is the gift that keeps on giving,
No, but you see, I mean, listen, the point has been made. Amalia project is one of those essential cash cow in which it presents an opportunity for the administration to siphon off hundreds of millions of dollars. I remind you, people, that we made mention that Amila started how many years ago, and we've lost hundreds of millions of dollars. and it was a Jaglios project. Then I remind you about the Skeldon Sugar Factory. We've lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And again, it was another Barrett Jaglios project. Barrett Jaglio has been associated with so many, as he claimed them to be, mega projects, and all of which have failed.
Mega failure.
Mega failure. And the result of Barrett Jaglio's failure resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars that could have been otherwise used to benefit the citizens of this country. It could have been able to pay public servants the much awaited increases in wages and salary, to pay them a living wage to begin with. So these mega projects that you see they're throwing out, which all experts and all rational thinking people would be like, this makes absolutely no sense. Solar is the way to go. It's cheaper, alternative, and so forth. But no, they're pressing on. Why? It is an easy way to get access to billions of dollars that could be siphoned off to their friends and cronies. And perhaps soon I'll probably get a contract he now is going to get. And of course, he got to pay his boss. You know, the boss got to get paid. And
I found it funny when Sue said the hydro, that was an expensive one. The hydro was tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So,
you would believe that the hydro is already operational. You would believe that the hydro is in operation and Guyanese are benefiting from it. But Sue obviously has already benefited. People are benefiting before these projects come on stream. So you see the need and you push to get it.
I'll tell you, it was quite the allegation for him to make. The hydro was much bigger than this. There's been bigger ones.
That's a big cash cow. Big cash cow. If you can make money before the project is even ported, so to speak, then that's a huge cash cow.
But you know, I just want to echo this sentiment again. You know, as I mentioned about the memes and things popping up on Facebook and WhatsApp status of them thing, I stand in support of Jaglio and so forth. You know, it is so sad. It is so sad that as a country, as a nation, as a people, that we've reached the stage in which, as was previously done under the People's Progressive Party Civic, they believe that the average Guyanese are ignorant, are stupid people. And they've always been, over the years that they've been in office, to shove all sorts of nonsense down the throats and minds of the Guyanese people, because they believe that Guyanese people are dumb and stupid people. That us listening to a documentary of which we heard for ourselves is not hearsay. We see for ourselves, we read the text. You would form your own opinion. But we've managed to be a country in which, because they are supporters of the PPP, just decide that no man, nothing wrong with them. You know, Barrett Jaglio is a good man. How could this be?
Again, if these allegations are true, but I would ask this question: they don't get blackout too? Or they got generated? It could be they got generated, so they don't have to worry about the blackouts.
But it's very worrying in terms of us as a society. Yeah. As a society, and as I mentioned to you, I see some young DJs on their WhatsApp status. I was shocked, or as according to my friends in Linden, I was shook it. I was shook it when I saw young DJs on their WhatsApp status getting involved in this. What does that to do with you? You know, but it just tells you. It tells you this. And this was part of the struggle that the coalition government had in office. The PPP went in office for 23 years. And corruption and corrupt practices, particularly during Barrett Jaglio's reign, became the norm. If I want my passport renewed and I want it back quick, all I gotta do is pass a $5,000 or pass a towel.
Culture. I call it hustle culture, Chris. It was a hustle culture in this country.
That's what we. And I mean, think about it. 23 years that we've been in office. You got some youngsters who are probably now 27, 30 years old. Therefore, when the PPP came into office, they were 7. So their entire life, you have to say, they grew up in the hustle culture. I want my passport renewed. I got the thing, I pass a towel, I pass a $5,000. I want my birth certificate done. I go GRO and I slip the girl or buy a little lunch money. I want my license. I look for the police officer and I give you 20 grand. And the list goes on. I go to housing, and apparently, I think this is still currently happening in some places. You pay $100,000, but apparently they're overdoing it now because they're asking for 300,000 because apparently somebody upstairs got to get, somebody in the middle floor got to get,
Yes.
and somebody that does it
To
got to get
1 million.
100,000.
Up
Right?
to
Well,
1
well, let's say
million.
it could be more, right? What
Yeah.
I'm saying is that has been the culture under
Yeah.
the PVP. So corruption is norm. So when the AP and UAFC got into office and you put the vice grip, so to speak, on these things, on corruption and so forth, which was the right thing, that you had to go through the procedures, right became wrong. Because you had people complaining, oh God,
Money
I
in
can't get this thing looked after.
flowing.
And then,
Money
some who are accustomed to
and
getting
the
the bread,
PVP
money flowing.
were
And when the PV in office, money used to flow, and because
the PVP
this is how the money
orchestrated
flow.
they orchestrated that this whole concept that money inflowing, this slogan, money inflowing.
That's
That
right,
was
money
orchestrated
flowing.
them.
So is that right became wrong, and wrong, which includes corruption, becomes right. So now when you hear this damning allegation of your most senior government official, the vice president who served as president, these allegations of corruption, for many in the society, particularly the PVP supporters, corruption is right. What is wrong with that? You understand me?
I'm telling you, upside up is down, left is right.
Exactly.
Honesty and decency.
So when
Who needs honesty and decency?
Yeah, who needs honesty and
all of
decency?
these when all these calls are being made for an impartial investigation to be had so that we can look into these damning allegations, the PVP supporters and people is like, what is wrong with that? He take a little money.
Yeah,
I support you.
Corruption.
I support you.
Corruption in
Never
Guyana.
mind, you get them blackout every 2 mornings,
That's
you
right.
know, those
No,
kinds
Yeah,
of
bad mind
things. Never mind.
No,
Never
I
mind.
saw some of them say that bad mind you.
Exactly. So the PVP has created this culture in Guyana that wrong is right and right is wrong. So corruption with Jagdio is a good man. I support him. There's
And
my
guys,
boss, there's my dupes. You
I
understand
want to
me?
loop it into another issue as we wind down. I want to loop it into another issue, and then we'll just close off with what it is you would like to ask Sue. But so one of the things Sue also mentioned, which I said disturbed me. Sue said that the oil company was another one where you had to play a high bribe, and I'm thinking to myself, if these allegations are true, what oil company is Sue talking about? Is it a deal that exists? Or is Sue talking about the upcoming auction of oil blocks that's
Future
supposed
deal.
to take place in this country later this year? This
There you
is
go.
disturbing, and we need to see an investigation to clear the air before that auction takes place. That is again the whole country's future, the entire country's future, and you are telling me that there's a possibility, if these allegations are true, that Sue already got your own oil block lock off.
If like the Amelia Falls, he was being paid. He's already paid before this, before that project becomes operational. Even begins to the construction phase or whatever the initial phases even begin. So
Already?
to me, if Sue said it, it's already a done deal. Let us hope. Let us
Let's
hope
get
for
an
the sake of this
investigation.
country. I want to reiterate the point that I made in the beginning. Guyana is at a pivotal point, a crucial point in our history, a very, very critical point in our history. And so it is very important. It is absolutely important that an impartial investigation is done here. It is important that Bara Jagdeo steps down, whether he's innocent, whether he's guilty, and allow an impartial investigation to be done. And we can take it from there, because this has, to my mind, serious, very, very serious implications for this country and the future, our future as a nation. It has serious implications. Sue has mentioned the oil block. to me, to my mind, that's already some sort of deal has already taken place there, or is already in the pipeline. You know,
We
so
need to
I
find
would
out
have been.
the truth. We need to find out. Guyanese, let me ask you this. Where's your oil block? Sue may have already knocked off his oil block. Where's your oil block? You have oil block? Would you like
Why?
oil
But
block?
this guy going just buy a half pint of oil.
I'm telling you, this man going to whole oil block. I mean, what,
Mhm.
what is going on in this country? If these
Hmm.
allegations are true, no, we have to
You,
get a proper
you know,
investigation.
and I wanted to make this other point.
Yeah,
As government officials, as leaders in the opposition, we're not attacking any investment in this country with any particular group or anything. What we are addressing here is the issue of corruption. It doesn't matter if these deals are being made with the United States, with the British, with the Chinese, whoever, with the Africans, whoever. We're attacking the issue of corruption here. We understand the fallout. It ultimately it is the people of the country that suffers from corruption. When you're supposed to get better health services, you can't get it because millions are being, hundreds of millions and even billions are being siphoned off. When you, the public servants, as Chris mentioned, it, the long awaited salary increase, they cannot get it. They could have, if we could have saved hundreds of millions of dollars from going into someone like Sue, allegedly, like Sue's pockets and his boss. We could have gotten better electricity networks. We could have built many hydros, many hydro plants.
yeah,
Forget a million miles. We could have built hydros all across this
yeah,
country. We could
yeah,
have seen
yeah,
the kind of development. We could have seen the kind of rapid development. Not build a piece of road from Diamond to South, which frankly speaking, isn't serving any real purpose. We could have seen that massive highway from the turning point at
yeah,
um at,
yeah,
at Timeri there that the coalition had envisioned to Ogle that would carry away all those traffic
yeah,
from the East
yeah.
Bank. We could have
Absolutely.
seen so much development. We could have
Yeah,
had free university that they
yeah,
have promised. We should have had free university by now. Come on,
oh,
man, this is their second year. But
yeah.
if you have corruption, you will always have these fallouts. The people will not benefit in the way they should benefit. And you know,
And you
it
know,
is
if the government thieves out the oil money, then there won't be a whole lot of oil money left for the rest of us. Folks, we're just gonna close off. I'll say my last point is that if I could ask, if the allegations are true, if I could ask Sue a question, it would be, does Jack Leo prefer $1,000 bills or $5,000 bills? I don't know if you gentlemen have any.
how he likes to receive his cash. That's a
If
good one.
you
I would have asked him. I would have asked him, that's a good one, Elson. I would have asked him how much money did he actually give to Jackie if the allegations are true, and who are the other culprits? Who are the other culprits
yeah,
in the
yeah,
government that are a
yeah,
part of this scheme?
yeah,
Over
yeah,
to you, Chris.
But for me, it would be simple. I would ask about the other investors who would have come
mm,
before the undercover investigation, and who are those persons, and how many contracts and bribe they would have had to pay, and also to name the contracts that they were given.
yeah,
And Sherwin mentioned something in terms of the APNUFC's position as it relates to investors coming and invest in Guyana. But it is also to signal to those investors who would have came into Guyana under the PPP's administration from 2020 to date, is that there will be a full investigation as to how you receive, whether it's the contract or the terms of agreement in terms of your investment here in Guyana. I can assure you that such an investigation will be launched to ascertain whether or not you went through the proper channels to acquire the investment that you currently have in the country. That is what the APNU AFC could assure you. So those who are likely to come and know that the only way that they are coming is by virtue of paying a bribe to some government official, or because you are a friend of a PPP member, we want to assure you that once you touch these shores, we got you on record, and we will investigate the terms and condition and how you acquire the land and how you acquire the investment opportunity that you have. I can assure you that. So it is
Thank
not
you.
set in stone. Just so we say that so that you can tread cautiously.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the program as much as I enjoyed it. We had a laugh here and there. Viewers, this is just the beginning of Sugate. There's going to be a lot more, so keep your eyes and ears open. There's going to be a lot more conversation around this. Of course, we're looking at all of the international agencies and the embassies that do business with Ghana, that work along with the Guyana government, to call again for an investigation. We're looking at civil society to call for an investigation, but we're looking at you as viewers, as individuals, as citizens of our country, to lend your support to this investigation, to lend your support to this movement, to change things in this country and to see real progress. And the last note I'll say is, again, if the allegations are true, every time you get blackout, if you could kindly remember the words Amalia and Jaglio, we'd much appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, viewers. And thank you. We'll call the show to an end.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.